Until now we've been speaking about the story of Bria Sa'olam, creating the world, and the stories of Adam Rishon and different things that were related to that. Now we sort of finished the topic of Adam Rishon. We're moving on to the next story, the next topic of Kayin and Hevel. So we're all familiar with the basic story of Kayin and Hevel, that they brought korbanos, and Kayin's korban wasn't accepted, and Hevel's korban was accepted, and Kayin got jealous and he killed Hevel. And when I was a little kid, so I used to get confused between Kayin and Hevel. Which is the one that killed and which was the one that got killed? So I have a trick to remember. Kayin wasn't so kind when he killed Hevel. That's how I remember. That's when I was okay. So the Medrash gives a very interesting introduction to the whole topic of Kayin and Hevel. It says like this. Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Umipri ha'etz asher b'seich hagon, and the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, you're not supposed to eat from it. That's what it says in the pasuk. The pasuk pshat in the pasuk is that's the tzivui that when Hashem said to Adam Rishon, He said you can eat from the fruits of all the trees in the garden, but the tree that's in the middle of the garden, the b'seich hagan, you're not allowed to eat from that. That's the eitz hadas, you're not allowed to eat from it. Come on. That's pasuk pshat in the pasuk. Tana Rabbi Zeir Omer. Tana, we learned, Rabbi Zeir says like this: Mipri ha'etz, from the fruit of the tree, ein ha'etz hazeb ela adam shenim shel ka'etz. It doesn't literally mean a tree, rather the tree in this situation is referring to a person who's comparable to a tree. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh, that a man is like a tree of the field. So you see, a person is like a tree. So what's talking about, you're not allowed to eat a person, so to speak, inside the Asher B'Seich Hagan, that's inside the garden. What does that mean, inside the garden? Ein B'Seich Hagan elo lashon nikiyah. The expression B'Seich Hagan, inside the garden, is supposed to be a lashon nikiyah, a clean expression to refer to something else that we didn't want to say out specifically. Masha B'Seich Haguf, it means what's inside the body. Asher b'seich hagan, inside the garden. Asher b'seich ha'isha, which is inside the woman. Ve'ein hagan ela ha'isha shenim shel hagan. The expression garden refers to a woman who's comparable to a garden. Shenema, as it says in pasuk in Shir Shirim, gan na'ul achay sichala. Chazal tells us that pasuk is talking about the Jewish women in Mitzrayim. So they closed themselves up, so that the Mitzrayim won't have any relations with them. So they're called a gan na'ul, a closed up garden. Ma'agina zoi, komash in Israel, hitzoi machas umitzia. Just like this garden, anything that you plant in it, that's what's going to grow and that's what's going to come out from it, that's what's going to produce. Kacha isha hazois, komash in Israel, so to a woman, whatever you plant in her, she's going to become pregnant with, and that's what she's going to give birth from. Meaning, whoever the father is, that's what the kid is going to be. That's basically the point over here.
I just thought this is probably the shot what I wrote. Boldy says that chinuch starts 9 months before the child comes out.
Right?
Because you're sowing the seed, depending on what kind of seed you're sowing at that point.
Right. So, it's sort of, the basic idea over here is sort of, we sort of understand the thing, but like the exact way that what it's talking about is sort of enigmatic. The Marzu explains that we're talking about the Isser of Arayas. That even though the pasuk is saying you're not allowed to eat from it, it's talking about, it's referring to the idea of Arayas, that you're not allowed to get hana from the fruit of the garden that's usher to you, or that's not yours, or whatever. That's how he understands it, and he says that. Okay, and we'll see pretty quickly how this is an introduction to the story of Kayin and Hevel. But it's interesting that the Marzu says that because the Ma'isa, like let's say in the Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Nun Vavam and Beis, so over there the Gemara brings a different pasuk to tell you that Adam Rishon was commanded in the Isurim of Arayas. Or there's another of Lamar over there, the Gemara says, and another pasuk the Gemara in Sanhedrin and the Medrash Rabbah and Bereshis also says a pasuk of Al Kain Yazav Ishis Avivis Imay V'Davak Be'ishtay, that that's the source of Arias. So I'm not sure exactly.
But I don't get it. Arias is Ashes. He is somebody else.
Yeah.
There's nobody else.
So we're going to see what I'm talking about. Basically, we're going to say that the Nachash had relations with Chava, and from that Kayin was born. So this
everybody wanted to. Where he actually did. That was the
that's
wanted Chava, and he tricked.
So right. So that's what Rashi says in Chumash. Okay. But in Pirkei D'Blazer it says more than that, and we're gonna have to try to figure out exactly what it means. But
Abel killed Kain.
Oh, so I said in the beginning that when I was a little kid, I used to forget which one killed which, Kayin and Hevel. So I came up with a trick to remember, or maybe someone told me, I don't remember. Kayin wasn't so kind when he killed Hevel.
Oh,
that's how you remember it.
Yeah, they have the Portuguese one.
Yeah, what do they say in Portuguese?
I don't know. Actually, they have a joke. Whatever, it's not funny.
It's not funny.
It's not funny.
so who came from the relationship between
Kayin?
Kain.
We're going to see in a moment.
Yeah.
The other nukud, just the point that the Medrash is saying over here is that that a woman is like a garden. That whatever you plant in the garden, that's what's gonna produce. So to a woman, like whoever is gonna plant in her, whoever is gonna be the father, so the kid is gonna be like the father, or is gonna be similar to the father in some ways. Rabbi Yomi Izmir over here has like a whole like very weird, bizarre explanation. I don't know, Chas v'Shalom to say something about what we're talking about. What does it mean? What is, because we said that Pashup Sham, this pasuk of not eating from the eitz Pesach Hagan, is that it's really talking about the Isser of the Eitz Hadas. So what does that have to do with Arias of Pesach Hagan? We said that the Gan is the Isha.
Das is Arias.
So
Relations.
Okay, you could say it like that. See, he says like a whole funny part based on the Zohar in Parshas Noach.
Who's that word?
The Rabbi Yomi Izmir. You have it over here on V'loy Oidela. Basically the Zohar says that if it wasn't for the fact that Adam Rishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, so he said that the mechanism for reproduction would have been different. So that it wouldn't have been, the way it would be like you look at your spouse or you hug or you kiss like from the outside. But now that they ate from the Eitz Hadas, so it had to be that you had to go into the inside. So when Hashem said, don't eat from the Eitz Asher B'Seich Hagan, he's saying, don't bring yourself to a situation where you have to go B'Seich Hagan. Rather, don't eat from the Eitz Hadas and leave it that you would be able to reproduce without going inside. You would do it from like the outside somehow. So he says that like, that's what the Medrash over here is talking about.
Interesting, like the plants reproduce, there is an inside and outside, but it's not so much, so
right.
Maybe that's the illusion there.
Okay.
And interesting, if you go inside, it creates a tumor. A tumor carrying tumor from a woman.
Right.
Could be from the outside, it wouldn't give you a tumor.
I think it's a famous word from Rav Hirsch that what the whole Indian of Tumah is, that Tumah is the lack of life. Right. So like when you're creating life, you're also losing the potential to create life. Like you're using it up.
When you create tumor, just like when you create life.
Yeah. What?
When you create tumor.
No, when you create life, you're also creating tumah because let's say like if I use this to create life, so when I use this, now I don't have it anymore. So I lost a sort of potential to create life again.
Like light and darkness.
And that's what basically everything that has to do with tumah has to do with life and death. Like Keri and then Nida and Sheretz is a dead Sheretz, and Tumas Meis is Tumas Meis. It's like all the things have to do with either creating life or taking away life. Okay, whatever. Well, okay, so now this is the main part that the Medrash is trying to bring out. Bo Eleha Reichev Nachash, the one who is riding on the snake, on the Nachash, had relations with Chava. And we spoke about that the Malach Sami we saw in Parak Yud Gimel, Samael, the Malach Sami, we called him in Parak Yud Gimel. He said that he was the one that was riding on the Nachash, that he went to try to convince Chava to eat from the Eitzas. So we're talking about that Malach that came onto Chava.
I don't have the gears of the snake.
What do you have the Gersa?
I just have
Ba'eleha
Ka elecha ve'ibra as Kain.
Okay. So by us it says Bo'eleha Reichev Nachash, and then like the word Reichev is sort of like in parentheses. So either it says Nachash or Reichev Nachash. And that's also the Gersa in the Yalkut Shemaini, basically Reichev Nachash. Ve'ibra as Kain, and she became pregnant from Kayin. Ve'achar kach Ibra as Hevel. And then afterwards she became pregnant with Hevel. Shneimar ve'ha'adam yada as Chava ishtay. It says that man knew Chava, his wife.
So without the Nachash makes more sense. Shneimar Adam yada as Chava.
No, because look at the next slide. Ma yada, what does it mean that he knew her? So we understand in general that there's a term, biblical knowing, which is a euphemism for something else. But here the Medrash is saying it means that he knew something. He actually knew something. What did he know? He knew shahaysamu beres, that she was pregnant. And she saw that the form of whatever she was pregnant with wasn't from the tachtonim, from the lower worlds, but was rather something from the upper worlds. Meaning that the father was not, let's say, of the lower worlds, but it was from the upper worlds. Meaning it was a malach. The malach samach mem. V'hibita v'amra, and she saw and she said, Kanisi ish es Hashem, I acquired a man. Es Hashem, the Radal says it means like with Hashem. Like a man that's like a man that's with Hashem is referring to a malach. A malach is called the ishim. So a malach, Kanisi Ishas Hashem means like that she became pregnant from a malach. This malach of the samach mem. And then after, so she first became pregnant with Kayin, and then after she became pregnant with Hevel. So I wanted to say that what you have to say is that she gave birth in between, because the Gemara. Tesis in Yevamas and Daf Yud Beis and Beis talks about this. We say that Ein Isha Misaberes Suchayzer Misaberes. You can't become pregnant and then become pregnant again without giving birth in between, right? So the Pashta says that she became pregnant with Kayin, gave birth to Kayin, and then afterwards she became pregnant with Hevel and gave birth to Hevel. That's the Pashup shot. And then I found that the Targum Yonasan in Bereshis Dalet, Perak Dalet, Pasuk Aleph also says this, that she gave birth to Kayin and then became pregnant with Hevel and gave birth to Hevel. The Radal over here seems to be saying at least that the Medrash is sort of criticizing Adam Rishon, that Adam Rishon saw that Chava became pregnant from something from El Yoinim, from some sort of malach or whatever, and still he lived with Chava and then she became pregnant with Hevel. Really, Adam Rishon shouldn't have done that. He should have waited until whatever zuama, whatever the Gemara uses the expression zuama, the dirtiness or some sort of impurity that the Nachash put into Chava, he should have waited for that to dissipate and then go back to Chava. But instead he didn't wait, and then he went and the Hevel was born from that. And the Radal says also that. See, this is the sort of the hard to understand part, because the Pashup Shan, what the Medrash is saying is that when we're talking about Kayin, so by Kayin, so the father was this malach and the mother was Chava, and then we're talking about Hevel, so Adam was the father and Chava was the mother. But the Radal says that even Kayin also had to do with the Bia of Adam. It was like sort of like, I guess, some sort of like mixture of like Adam and this malach were like sort of contributed to the creation of Kayin. I found that the Rikanti also, I just saw this on Rosh Hashanah, that the Rikanti in Parshas Bereishis also says the same thing, that Kayin was formed from Adam and the Samal, not just the Samal, because Hevel was formed, I guess, just from Adam and Chava, without the Samal, or minimally from the Satan, because of the Zuma that was still there, but not actually the Satan. I don't know exactly how all these things work together.
So what was it? Was it the Malach or was it the Nachash?
Was what?
Was it the Malach or was it the Nachash? Which one was it?
The Malach of the Nachash.
I don't know. It sounds like there was the Malach and the Nachash, the Samal and the Nachash go together. We said before that the Samal was riding on the Nachash, meaning it sort of like possessed the Nachash, and it was like the Nachash was doing the bidding of the Samal, or something like that, exactly.
according to Rav Zera, he's saying different things about the Adam is the H, the Isha is the gun.
Yeah.
It could be that the Nachash is also like something else, like just also like a sort of what's it called? Allusion to something else. The Malach itself, like the bad inside the Malach, the God inside the Chava, whatever.
You're saying I'm not sure exactly what you're saying.
What I'm saying, yeah.
What I understood of Zera is talking about what went into Chava. You want to say that the same thing that, like, when we're talking about going into Chava, so we're talking about also like that the Samael went into the Nachash. That's what you want to say?
No.
What are you trying to say?
The Nachash is Samael himself.
Right.
It's just like a part of it. Like the bad thing, it was, or I don't know, like the bad influence of the Samael got into inside Chava, and that's called the Nachash.
It could be. I don't know. The truth is, I'm not an expert in these things. Are like real. This is like Kabbalah. So I'm like, I don't really know Kabbalah. But just tell you what it says, and we'll try to figure it out.
Just a simple math. Like if we're here, Etz is Adam, and
right.
And the gun is Isha. Nachash could be like something bad. Also, like not
it could
exactly the Nachash. No, not something physical that we know.
But Rabbi Shmuel says, Mishem, from shame, and the Gersa, the old Mefarshim say it's not supposed to say shame, it's supposed to say sheis, because that's what we're talking about really. Misheis, all over Nisyachsu, kol dayis tzadikim. From sheis comes is the progeny, the pedigree of all the future generations of tzadikim. Sheis is the third son of Adam Rishon. After the story of Kayin and Hevel, so Adam Rishon, we said, separated from Chava for 130 years, and then when he was 130 years old, so then Chava, he went back to Chava, and then they had a son called Sheis. Shemimenu hushtas ha'olam. From him the world was founded, and we're all descendants of Sheis, basically. Right. So from Sheis, that all the tzaddikim, they're meyuchas to Sheis. They're ascribed to Sheis. They're connected to Sheis.
What about Kayin?
Kayin, from Kayin, all of Nisyachsu, kol deris harishoyim hamordim v'hapishim b'morim. From Kayin or Nisyachis, all the generations of the wicked people who rebel and who sin on purpose against Hashem, and they say, we don't need the drops of your rain, Hashem. We can take care of things on our own. We don't need you. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, "Vayomru lakel sur mimenu." They said to Hashem, "Remove yourself from us." So that's the point over here is to say that Sheis is good and Kayin is bad, because Kayin came from this Malach Samael, and we're saying that whatever you plant, that's what it's going to produce. So if the epitome of evil planted into Chava, so then what's going to be produced is evil. And when we're talking about Sheis, so Sheis was from just Adam and Chava, and so that's good. So Sheis is going to be a good person. So that's the continuation of Sheis. What about Hevel? Okay, we'll have to speak about Hevel really in the beginning of the next parak. Like how does sort of Hevel fit into this idea? Well, here we're talking about it as Kayin versus Sheis. But this line over here is going to appear in the beginning of the next parak as well. Fine. Now we're going to talk about Kayin and Hevel and who they married, etc. Rabbi Miyasha Omer. Rabbi Miyasha says, Noiled Kayin usumasay imay. Noiled Hevel usumasay imay. First, the way I understood what it's saying over here is that first Kayin was born and his twin sister was born with him. Then Hevel was born and his twin sister was born with him. And the implication of what Rabbi Miyasha is saying is that who did Kayin marry and who did Hevel marry? Kayin married his twin sister. Hevel married his twin sister. That's what they married, and that's how they had children, and that's where the world is coming out from.
Comes out from a word for it. Rabbi Shmuel learned out for it.
It could be.
We learned out that it was a sister.
Well, if you look at the Lashon of the pasuk, it says, "V'hodam yodas chava es Kayin v'Taimer Kanisi is Hashem. So it says Es by the birth of Kayin, but Tosef Laletus, she continued to give birth, Es Ochiv Es Hevel, his brother Hevel. Chazal tell us that it says Es twice by Hevel to tell you that Hevel had two twin sisters. But here we're not necessarily talking about that at this point in the Medrash. It is going to come up in this parak, but not yet. But there's an interesting thing about the twin sister of Kain. A lot of different Sfarim are trying to figure out what was Kain's wife's name, or talking about what was Kain's wife's name. The Ibn Ezra in Bereshis Hey Chavtes, the Ibn Ezra says, "Lo mali tishal shma." What do you care what her name is? Like, why are you trying to figuring out things and like discussing things that like our Sfarim don't talk about? That's the Ibn Ezra's criticism of those people. But Lamaisa, there's a whole like slew of different Sfarim that I wrote down over here that say the name of Kain's wife. Shalshal HaKabbalah and Barbanel also brought in the Seder Durs. They said her name was Kalmana. And there's a sefer called Kadmonies HaYehudim, which is what's called the Antiquities of the Jews, not Josephus, but a different Greek Roman philosopher named Philo Judaeus, a famous philosopher. Philo, he was Jewish, but he wasn't necessarily from. But he has some sort of Kabbalah that her name was Temach. There's a sefer Yachmiel that says her name was Temed. In Medrash HaGadol it says her name was Knunsel. In Sefer Yoivlim, the Book of Jubilees, it says that her name was Avoin. Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings another pshat in his Sefer L'Machasa Atik. He brings in the name of Ksav that her name. Can I close the door?
No,
it's hot. I don't feel listening. Havaya, what's it called? That's where Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings from. That's Tanakh Parchi. No, he brings it b'shem Medrash Ksav Yad, which I did some research and I found that that's what's called Tanakh Parchi, which is a very interesting book. It was never printed. It's a Ksav Yad from like the 1200s or so from Spain, and it has a Tanakh and it has like some sort of anonymous pirush written on it. We don't know who wrote it. And it somehow found its way to the Sassoon Library, the famous Sassoon family from England. What's it called? He was a Talmud of Dessler. So the Sassoon family has like a library of like all kinds of kisvei, whatever. So they got it from one in Parchi or something. So it's called the Tanakh Parchi, which it has like a pirush. It was never printed, and it's sitting in a vault now in like Switzerland. That like no one's ever looked at it, and it was never published. But one person looked at it like 150 years ago, and he wrote down a few interesting things from it. So he wrote an article about it, Harkavi. So he printed like a whole bunch of interesting things. And one of the things that he mentioned is that it says over there that the name of Kain's wife was Havaya. So this time is an interesting thing that they talk about what was Kain's wife's name.
How many other books are hidden away in the vault? We don't know.
Yeah, how many books? I don't know.
Whose vault?
Someone in the Sassoon family is hiding it in Switzerland.
Don't let.
No, they don't want to look at it. Whatever.
Who wrote it?
We don't know who wrote it. Someone from the time of the Rishonim in Spain. So, I think it was in Spain. Yeah. But Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, so Rabbi Miyasha says that Kayin had his twin sister, Hevel had his twin sister, and that's who they married, and that's who they had kids with. Amar Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel said to Rabbi Miyasha, it doesn't say in the pasuk, V'yisha she'yikach es achoisoi bas aviv or bas imoi moledes bais or moledes chutz, whatever. It's also now I'd marry your sister. The pasuk we didn't read this pasuk, but we had a similar pasuk on Yom Kippur. You now I'd marry your sister. So how could it be that Kain married his sister, Hevel married his sister? You're not going to marry your sister.
Yeah, but there was nobody else. So what do you want?
Oh, so that's the answer.
Look, it's not wood stuff to be
Amalai, so he said to him, from this you know that there weren't any other women in the world, that she used to Lohan, that they should marry them, so that's why they married them.
Yeah.
V'hitiran Lohan. So that's why they married them, because there was no one else. And that's about this. The pasuk says, "Ki omarti olam chesed yibane," because Hashem said that the world is built on chesed. And we said we mentioned this idea before in Parak Tezayin that marrying your sister is called a chesed. It's just the type of chesed that's aser. But before the Torah was given, then it's mutter. The chesed nivra ha'olam, the world was created with chesed actually in the Torah until before the Torah was given. After the Torah was given, then the Torah's laws supersede whatever ideas of chesed we might think of. But beforehand, chesed is more important than let's say what would be the isra of harayah. So then we spoke about this idea earlier in practice design. So I'm being makatzer. It's not exactly the way I said.
At least 3 events in that we know that things like that happen.
Yeah.
Except for Abraham and Yaakov Avinu, they married 2 sisters.
Yeah.
But not like their daughters or whatever. And it was the same excuse were used. And here.
Yeah.
And after the Mabul.
After the Mabul. Why after the Mabul?
What's it called? Noah's sons.
Noah's sons what?
They married. Who they married?
I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I don't know of a source that says that they married their sisters.
No.
I don't know.
No.
I always thought.
It doesn't say that.
Okay.
Amram married his aunt. Fine.
Yeah.
The Rav Chaim Volozhiner speaks about it. We spoke about this in Parak Tezayin. That Rav Chaim Volozhiner speaks about it.
And also Lot's daughters.
So they thought that they were in the same situation.
Exactly.
Right. That the world was destroyed, there was no one else. So that was Rav Miyasha, and then Rabbi Shmuel asked the question, how could they marry their sister? And then we answered, no, because there was no one else, and that's how you started the world. And we said, Olam Chesed Yibana, and marrying your sister is called a Chesed, right? The Radal is sort of like bothered by this. He's like, I don't understand what Rabbi Shmuel wanted. Like, obviously there was no one else in the world, so they had to have married their sisters. So when you ask the ayah, it's also that, like Rabbi Bates pointed out, that's the obvious answer before we even saw the next line in the Medrash. Like, what's he bothered by? Like, what did he want them to do? So I would say Rabbi Shmuel Stam, he was just asking the question to bring out the answer. I don't think he really thought that like no, it should be also. How can they do it? I don't think he was asking it like that. He was like, oh, and what's that? What's the heter? Like, explain more about it. He didn't mean to ask, but the Radal doesn't say like that. The Radal says that what Rabbi Shmuel wanted was that Kayin should. He says like this: that the inyan of Arias is that as somebody is closer to you, so they're more usher to you. So if we're talking about a sister and a twin sister, so the Radal says that it should be that a twin sister would be, let's say, more usher than to marry your twin sister than to marry your regular sister, because the twin sister is more similar to you than, or let's say a half sister is let's say less closer to you than a full sister, right? So the more close they are to you, they should be more usher.
That's why maybe the pasuk brings both of them.
Well, let's say.
Sister and also
yeah, that's why the Torah says that all of that is usher.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about over here, so the Radal says that Rabbi Shmuel was asking like this. That's if you have a choice. You have a choice. Kayin can marry his twin sister, or he can marry Hevel's twin sister, and Hevel will marry Kayin's twin sister. Why did it? So he understands. Rabbi Shmuel was asking, why was it that Kayin had to marry his twin sister? Why shouldn't he marry Hevel's twin sister? Because it's also to marry your sister, right? So if you have a choice of marrying your sister or your twin sister, so rather you should choose your regular sister, other than your twin sister, so that it's not going to be the most close to you. That's what Rabbi Shmuel's question was. Or at least that's the way the Radal understands it. And then the answer is that no, Hashem wanted the world to already be created. And let's say like this: if Kayin had to wait for Hevel and his twin sister to be born, so then that's going to delay the foundation of the world until Hevel and his twin sister are going to be born. So Hashem wanted right now. So Kayin was born, he married his twin sister right away, without waiting. And I guess then once Kayin did this, then Hevel's going to do the same thing or something like that. It's an interesting idea.
At what point did it stop?
I don't like this time-bound explanation. If Hashem wanted to rush things up, it's just like it could create different people. That's it.
No, but not necessarily. You could say also that they had a responsibility, that their role in the world was to continue the world. So then it's like now you're just like being lazy. You're just waiting around till what? Till what happens? Or maybe they didn't know what's going to happen next. So do what you're supposed to do right now instead of waiting for what might happen later on in the future. You could say it like that. He didn't say it like that, but maybe. Yeah. And he brings a Ran basically that says a similar idea. Whatever. Yeah, so that's the Yisod over here. So basically, this understanding was that what happened first was that Kayin and his twin was born, and then afterwards Hevel and his twin was born. Right? So that Kayin and Hevel were born separately. In fact, the diuk in the pasuk is Vatar vateledis Kayin, Vatar Mekanisish Hashem, Vataisef Ladaris. She continued. She additionally gave birth. We can understand as she's giving birth. It's a different giving birth. It's a. This is like a new episode. She's giving birth, and that was when Hevel was born. Not that Kain and Hevel were born together. That's what it seems like. This idea, this pshat in the Medrash is saying. Rabbi Yossi says Kain and Hevel toimim hayu. Kain and Hevel were actually twins. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, Vatachar vateledis Kain. She gave birth. She became pregnant. And she gave birth to Kain. But Shaita, at that moment, a sifas lemelad. She continued to give birth. Shneimar v'teisef loledis, and she continued to give birth, and that's when Hevel was born. So this opinion is saying that no, Kain and Hevel were twins. They were born at the same. They were born in Palchos Yosef, the same episode. Not v'teisef is like a different. Additionally, furthermore, a different story. No, v'teisef means she gave birth to Kain, and then right away she also gave birth to Hevel.
Can I bring another explanation?
Yeah.
My stomach.
From your stomach?
Yeah. That's what they say.
What? A beichsvar.
That's from my brain.
Yeah.
It comes out. When it's Rabbi Miyasha says Nalad Kain v'teumaso imoy.
Yeah.
Does it say? Does it have to say? Does he have to be that he's a sister, or maybe it could be his brother?
No.
Is that what Rabbi Yossi said?
No, because tu'umasai means twin sister.
Yeah, I know. It has to be
The word tu'umasai means his twin sister.
Yeah, but it has to be. According to Rabbi Yossi, there's like only two twins. Only one pair of twins. Like when he was born, and there's a teom, and the other one was born, and also a teom. It means that there's no horse here. They both were born like together. They came out together.
I don't know if, the Gemara in Bukhari says that it's impossible. If you've heard of the expression, it's a famous expression. You ever heard of the expression F shalat samsem and Ef shalat samsem? So that's a Gemara in Bukhari when it's talking about two Bukharis being born at the same time. So we say that it's impossible. Ef shalat samsem. It's impossible that there's going to be two born at the same time. It has to be that one came out first before the other one, and then at best you could say that it's a suffix and we don't know which one came out first. We can't say that they both really came out at the same time.
Even if it comes to Hava?
What?
Even if it comes to Hava?
Why?
Even if it comes to Chava, I wouldn't come and say this chiddush like that on my own. To say that there was a nes by Chava that Kain and Hevel were born at the same time. There's no. So it would seem that Rabbi Miyasha and Rabbi Yossi, rather I said Rabbi Yossi in the Yalkut Shemaini in Parshas Bereishis, it doesn't say from Rabbi Yossi, it says Rabbi. So it's like it's even more chashav. It's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. But
Rabbi Yossi is it before?
It's true. If it's that Rabbi Yossi, I'm not sure which Rabbi Yossi would be, but it would seem that there's a machlokes over here. Rabbi Miyasha is saying that Kain was born with his twin, Hevel was born with his twin, and Kain and Hevel weren't born together. They weren't twins, b'chal. They themselves weren't twins. Because otherwise it's just a funny way of saying it. Him and his twin and her twin, but if they themselves are twins, so you should say that all four of them were twins. it's pretty clear to me that Rashi is saying that Kayin and Hevel were not twins. And then the next Rabbi Yossi is saying no, Kayin and Hevel were twins. So what about the girls? That's basically what you're bothered by. So So does Rabbi Yossi agree that there were girls that were born with them or not?
Yeah, but that's a lot to carry around. Four kids.
What?
4 kids to carry around. The first pregnancy.
Right.
Carry 4 kids is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. Monster.
And also Rashi explained that the beginning of Yaakov and Esau, there was like a tube. The first seed went in, and then that was Yaakov, and then the second seed went in with Esau. So Esau comes out first.
Right.
But Yaakov was really went in first.
Right. So you.
Mindful.
Yeah. The truth is, you'll only say that if we're talking about twins. If we're talking, right, because otherwise there's no such thing as a Bechor and a non-Bechor, right? Because then every Bechor, really, he should be the youngest, and then the youngest is really going to be the Bechor. No, there's no such thing like that. So when we're talking about twins, so we say that Rashi that you said. And if saying that Kayin and Hevel were twins, so according to what you said, really, Hevel would be really the Bechor and Kayin would be not the Bechor, which is a significant thing, which might come up later on. That according to what you said, Hevel is the Bechor and Kayin is not.
Could have cut the rectum.
Right. But well, you just made it more difficult because Pet the Rechem means the opening of the Rechem, which means the first one that comes out, not the first one that came in.
Correct.
So now you just made it more complicated.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah. See, it's not Pashut. No. Nothing is Pashut. Okay. So
where are the women? According to Rabbi Yossi.
So where are the women according to Rabbi Yossi? Right? So either you'll say that Rabbi Yossi, let's say it like this. The Gemara, if we remember from our chart, from Perkid off, of the 12 hours of the day that happened from Adam Rishon, so the Gemara says, very good. The Gemara says, in the 8th hour of the day, it says 2 people went up to the bed and 4 people came down. Yeah? So what does that mean? It means that other Pashas means Adam and Chava went up to the bed and then 4 people came down. What does it mean that 4 people came down? It says Taisus in Sechel Sanhedrin Lamed Chesed Beis, 4 people that came down is Adam, Chava, Kayin, and Kayin's twin. That's what Taisus says. Right? That's what Taisus says. Other Rishonim argue with that pshat. The Pirush HaTorah al Torah, Pirush HaTorah Aruch al Torah, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid al Torah, which could be not such michus like a sefer, but there are other Rishonim that say no. 4 went up, 2 went up, and 4 came down. Who were the 4 that came down? Adam, Chava, Kayin and Hevel. Okay. So now the question is, so if the 4 that came down are Adam, Chava, Kayin and Hevel, so what about the twins? We know that there were twins born, right? So Mefarshim say, I think the Mefarshim say, I don't think this is me saying this, but the Mefarshim say that the Gemara didn't mention the twin girls that were born with them because the twin girls aren't mentioned explicitly in the pasuk. So when it says that 4 came down, it's talking about Adam, Chava, Kayin and Hevel, and also the twins, but we didn't cheshbon in the twins because the twins aren't mentioned in the pasuk. But the twins were also there. And also what's it called? Pirush Harif al Ein Yaakov. You know Pirush Harif al Ein Yaakov? It's not written by the Rif. It's written by Rabbi Yeshio Pinto. It's like a Talmud of Chaim Vital. Misachas Erev and Kufim Adbeis. So they say this pshat. According to Taisus, it was Kain and his twin, and we're not talking about Hevel and his twins B'chal because they were born at a separate time. So Machlekes Rishonim exactly how to understand pshat in the Gemara. So what's the Machlekes? So I want to say that the Machlekes between Taisus and the other Rishonim is were Kain and Hevel twins or not. Targum Yonasan also goes like this, what we said over here in Pirkei Eliezer, that Targum Yonasan in Parshas Bereishis says that Kain and Hevel were twins. And we said over here, Kain and Hevel were twins. So I want to say that Taisus obviously understood, like the first pshat we said here in Pirkei Eliezer, that Kain and Hevel were not twins. the other Rishonim that said that Kain and Hevel were born together, and we're not mentioning the girls because the girls aren't mentioned explicitly in the pasuk. We're going like the second shot over here that they were twins, or like Targum Yonah said that they were twins. So that's basically how I account for it. The Radal sort of says a different. It says maybe this opinion over here in the Medrash doesn't hold like the Gemara. He says that he wants to say it doesn't hold like the Gemara because the Gemara says 4 came down, and according to Rabbi Yossi, it should be that 7 came down, and there is a mention that says that 7 came down because it'll be Adam, Chava, Kain and his twin, and Hevel and his 2 twins. But so that's what the Radal says. But I want to say it's not machlekes if he holds like the Gemara or not. It's machlekes in how to understand the Gemara. In the Rishonim. I'll tell you something funny. That when I was machadish this on Chol Moed Sukkos, was I think 6 years ago. This idea to explain the machlekes between the Teisus and the Rishonim is totally in machlekes if Kain and Hevel were twins or not. So it's very funny. I had no one to say this over to because there was no one around. I was in LA or whatever. So I had a date that day. It was Chol Moed Sukkos. So I went on a date with a girl, and I said over this word to her.
Oh no!
I said this is a whole mahalacha. I was like so happy. Like I came up with this chap, and like she understood what I was talking about. She chapped completely what I was saying, and then she's like, okay, so what?
Oh no!
I'm like, what do you mean? Now you have shad machlekes Rishonim. Okay, yeah, so.
But that's a woman. A woman sits like that. What?
Yeah, what's the practical nafkamina? I'm just trying to be bothered. What's the different pshat over here?
Are we making cake? Are we making bread? What are we making?
Yeah.
Good marriage.
What? No, that wasn't the one I married. No.
We know.
Yeah, what are you saying?
Everybody agrees that Adam and Chava were 2 of the 4. Do you have to say that Adam and Chava were born because it's Yara?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. In
Children came down.
Everyone assumes that. Everyone assumes that it's also talking about Adam and Chava again.
Does it make sense that they
Right.
wake up? So
Yeah.
They have to come down.
Right.
Could you say?
But you're right. If you want to say that it's not talking about Adam and Chava, then it would work out very well. But not really because Hevel had two twins with him, so it's just that 5 came down.
According to everybody, or that just according to some, and then he also had.
I'm not sure. That I'm not sure.
According to over here, he only had 1 twin.
That's what it sounds like because it says 2 Masa. It doesn't say 2 Moisav. Yeah, no, I was thinking that also. I'm not sure. With Masya or
Mi Asha.
Mi Asha. I think we had him before also in Pirkei Eliezer.
I wasn't made by a ton and they represented. I didn't know there was one.
No, it could be. First of all, it says Zeira, and at least in mine.
Also there.
Zeira means the small one. Zutra and Zeira, yeah, they both mean small. One more interesting point, and then we'll start talking about the next part. The Nezer HaKodesh in Bereshis Rabbah in Parsha Chaf Beis Siman Daled. The Nezer HaKodesh points out an interesting thing that if we're saying that Kain and Hevel were not twins, yeah, so he wants to say when was Hevel born? Kain l'chora was born. Who said that he was born the same day that Adam Rishon was created in the 8th hour of that day. So Adam Rishon was created, Pashtus, let's say, at least according to Pirkei Eliezer, on Rosh Hashanah, on Aleph Tishrei, right? So when was Hevel born? It has to be after that, right? So how much after that? So he wants to say like this. He makes an interesting cheshbon. He said that Kain and his twin sister were born, right? And the halacha is that when a woman gives birth to a girl, so she's tmeya for 14 days. And the Doraisa, after 14 days, she go to the mikvah and she's good. Right? We hold nowadays, you're supposed to do Shiva Nikim afterwards. But Midoraisa, after 40 days, you go to the mikvah and you can go back. And then you're tahar. Right? So it says, so he was born, Kain and his twin sister were born in Aleph Tishrei. Then for 14 days, Chava was Tmeya. Right? Then after 14 days, she went to the mikvah. The 15th day, she went back to her husband, and then Hevel was born. Right? So what's that? The 15th day of Tishrei, first day of Sukkot. So interesting, right? So according to the Nezer HaKodesh, Hevel was born on the first day of Sukkot.
And
And what?
Yeah.
What?
Hevel, I'm just thinking, Sukkot is the harvest.
Yeah.
But Hevel was not harvest. Hevel was animals.
Right.
Kain was more kosher to fruit.
Oh, so now that you mentioned it, we're going to read the next line in the Pirkei Avos.
So Hevel had to work on being with
Hevel had a sukkah every day. Had to take it.
V'haya Kayin Hevel la'aved adama l'zraya. Kayin loved to work the ground, to plant things, etc. The Hevel haya oyev lireis tzayin, and Hevel, his natural inclination was he liked to be a shepherd, to shepherd sheep, and to shepherd flocks. So they work together. This one would give from his work, from his products to him, and this one would give from his products to him. Meaning, let's say Kayin would grow things or whatever and give it to Hevel. And Hevel was growing animals. They weren't allowed to kill animals because they weren't allowed to eat meat yet. But the animals produced milk. You could make butter from the milk, these type of things. Or you could, if we're talking about sheep, you could use the wool. So that
was the first barter system.
The barter system, yeah. They worked out together. It says machal, but you could say that machal could also mean clothing. They worked out together what he needed and what he needed, and they put it together.
One moment, you said that Kain came from Nachat, right?
Yeah.
So Nachat is connected with Adam, no?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. Hopefully we'll get to that.
Hevel being from Malach connected with the sheep.
The Hevel is from Adam.
Yeah, because the sheep are much higher. The Bnei Israel became very soon.
Right, same.
So they could
Same creation.
With Hashem. So more spiritual kind of.
Right. And obviously, like a sheep is on a higher level of being, of living, than a growing thing. There's tzemeach and chai, so a chai is higher than a tzemeach.
It's interesting. Someone take care of something
That's lower.
Level. It should be in a higher level. The conscience should be that you know how to control high level things, not low level things. Everyone can do it.
Yeah.
But to control high level things, you have to be in a higher level.
Yeah.
It's all the crazy people today that don't understand. What's the difference between a cow and a person? You should not do this.
Yeah, those people, there's no difference.
They think they're cows.
I remember very important when it comes to like finding a job.
Right.
Depending on where your orientation was, get the kind of job you're doing.
And then the Bayis HaGadol has a discussion a little bit about if an animal died without shechita, died on its own, so were they allowed to eat the meat from it? Or did Hashem just say that you're not allowed to kill an animal to eat the meat, but if an animal died on its own, maybe you are allowed to eat the meat? Okay, whatever, that's what we get over here. Okay, so now we're up to the beginning of the story of Kayin and Hevel. The first question to ask before starting the story is, when did this happen? When did this story happen? So, Kederach of Chazal is that, okay, let's start like this. The pasuk says, Vayihi Miketz Yomim. It was at the end of days. So it's very ambiguous. Like Yomim can mean 2 days later. Yomim can mean years later. Well, so how long after, let's say, the Bria Sa'olam, after Kain and Hevel were born, how long afterwards was this story of Kain and Hevel, bringing karbanos and killing each other or whatever? How long afterwards? So I believe there are 7 different explanations, and Pirkei Avos is one of them. But we'll go through the other ones first, and then if we have time, maybe we'll start with Pirkei Avos. I'm not sure if we'll have time to do it, but first of all, there is the Sefer HaPliya, which is one of the early Kabbalah Sfarim. Sefer HaPliya says that this happened immediately afterwards. We're still talking about Mamish, like more or less the same day. Adam Rishon was created on Friday, and obviously his understanding that Kain and Hevel were twins because they're already born at the same time. Kayin and Hevel, and then that Friday was when they were chayte, they got kicked out of Gan Eden, right? And he says, so the Sefer Plea continues. It says, Friday night over Bashalim, everything was peaceful that Friday night, that Shabbos. And then Bahashkama, early in the morning, that Shabbos morning, early in the morning, they woke up early, and they brought their korbanos, and then after the korbanos, when Kain's wasn't accepted and Hevel's was accepted, then Kain got jealous and right away he killed him. Right? It was mamish like everything happened like in the same line of progression. And on that day, Hashem said, you're a tzarech, whatever, and Kain did tshuva, etc. So basically, his understanding that happened mamish the next day, the day after they were born, that Shabbos, Beis Tishrei, or whatever. And this would mean that really happened before what we talked about in the last parak. The Adam Rishon started fasting and doing tshuva on Sunday, so this was already on Shabbos before that. Which, be'etzem, if you remember, in the previous parak, so I asked a question. Two prakim ago. I asked a question in Parak Yutes. I asked a question that we said that Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbos. In Pirkei Eliezer, it sounds like it's talking about the first Shabbos Adam Rishon did tshuva, and we brought another medrash in Bereshis Rabbah where it says that Hashem Adam Rishon saw that Kayin killed Hevel and then did tshuva, and then he himself did tshuva because of that, and then it says Mizvah Shalem Shabbos. So then at that point in Pirkei Tes, I wanted to say that's machlokes between the midrashim. Is that talking about the first Shabbos, or is it talking about like afterwards when Kayin killed Hevel and then Adam Rishon did tshuva? But according to this, it's not. You don't have to say it's a machlokes, because it could be that Kain killed Hevel on that Shabbos itself, on that first Shabbos. And Adam Rishon, and then he killed him, and he got punished. He did the tshuva, and then Adam Rishon saw that he did tshuva. All of that is all happening in one day. All that Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbos is talking about the first Shabbos. Could be. But according to the Rabbi Yomi Izmir in Medrash Talpios on the words Harigas Hevel, so he says according to this, it comes out that Hevel lived for be'erech 16-17 hours. That's how long Hevel lived. And he wants to say that, the pasuk says, Vayhi miketz yomim, it was after days, the end of days. So how do you understand that? So it says days, yomim means 2 days. The least amount of days that yomim can mean is at least 2. So say it means 2, Friday, Shabbos, and then that's when the story happened, Shabbos.
And Kates would be the end of Shabbos?
Not sure.
What's Kates doing?
Not sure. It would just mean that there were 2 days. When you think because it sounds like it was at the end of the second day, I'm not sure.
It was at the end of the time.
Right, at the end of the time of 2 days, and it wouldn't be 2 full days.
Just trying to refer to something specific. There was a Kates or something.
The Pirush Rekech al Torah says that it was at the end of a year. Miketz Yomim means at the end of a year. The Abarbanel brings in the name of Josephus. It's not written in the Sefer Josephus, so it has to be in like one of Josephus's Roman, Latin books, where he says that Kayin and Hevel were 100 years old when this story happened. So it was 100 later. Medrash Tanchuma says they were 40 years old. Medrash Tanchuma in Parshas Bereishis Siman Tes said that they were 40 years old. And there's an interesting pshat from the Ari Yekaris. The Ari Yekaris was a great grandson of the Bach. The Bach had a great grandson named Rabbi Yehuda Leib Circus. The Bach was Rabbi Yael Circus. He had a great grandson named Rabbi Yehuda Leib Circus, who had a sefer called Livyas Chain. And Livyas Chain had a son who had a sefer called Ari Yekaris. They printed their sefer together. Livyas Chain and Ari Yekaris is a sefer on Chumash, which on every parsha, first it has the Livyas Chain, and then it has the Ari Yekaris. And then the next parsha, Livyas Chain, and then the Ari Yekaris. The father and son wrote the sefer together, so to speak. So the Ari Yekaris has like a whole part, like why dafka 40 years? He found a different medrash that says that before the Mabul, so you only had to plant things once every 40 years. So he says that if we're talking about Kayin bringing from the shrach stuff, so it had to have been that he planted it, and then Shvachal stuff grew. So it had to have been 40 years later. So that's why it says that the Medrash Tanchuma says it was 40 years later. The Seder Darius, when it brings this, so Seder Darius brings in the name of the Tanchuma that Kain was 100 years old when he killed Hevel, as if the Medrash Tanchuma is like a continuation of what Josephus said. But the truth is that it's really a mistake, because I looked in the Medrash Tanchuma itself. The Medrash says 40, not 100. And then I looked back at old prints of the early, like 300 years old prints of the Seder Darius, not 300, 250 years old. The first prints of the Seder Darius, it didn't say 100 years, it said Mem with a line, years, Shanim. And then in later prints, somebody must have decided that Mem stands for Mea and then wrote out the word Mea. But really it doesn't mean Mea, it means Mem meaning 40. So, yeah.
That's very nice.
Okay, well, probably the person didn't have a chance to look up the Medrash Tanchuma to see that it says 40. They just assume, because we're just talking about 100. So, the Ibn Ezra also says that it's a year, just like the Pirush Rikech. Okay, those are a whole bunch of explanations. Another set of explanations is in the Chazal, in Bereishis Rabbah. In Bereishis Rabbah, in Parsha Chaf Beis, Siman Daled. Vayhi Miketz Yamim. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shua. It's dependent on Machlekes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua how to understand when this story happened. No, we mentioned this a few times already. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua have a Machlekes if the world was created in Tishrei or the world was created in Nisan. Right? Was the world created in Tishrei and Nisan? Rabbi Eliezer, I remember Tishrei Nivra Olam. Rabbi Shua, I remember Nisan Nivra Olam. Right? So the Medrash says, Man da Amar b'Tishrei Nivra Ha'olam, according to the opinion that the world was created in Tishrei, Asa Nivra Ha'olam, Asa Hevel Kayim min Hachag v'ad Chanukah. Hevel was alive from Sukkot till Chanukah. Right? Man da Amar b'Nisan Nivra Ha'olam, Hevel Kayim min HaPesach v'ad Atzeres. Hevel was alive from Pesach till Shavuos, which is 50 days. Says the Medrash finishes off. It says, "Ben l'divrei elu, hakol moedim shloi asa Hevel ba'olam yosem mechamishim yom." Whether according to this opinion, whether according to this opinion, everyone agrees that Hevel didn't live for more than 50 days. That's what it says in the Medrash. Now, there's a few obvious problems with the Medrash. First of all, it says that Hevel was from a Chag at a Chanukah, from Sukkot to Chanukah. But who said Hevel was born on Sukkot? So we said a pshat that Hevel was why Hevel was born on Sukkot. But the Pashtus, and according to, if you learn that Hevel and Kain and Hevel were twins, definitely Hevel was born not on Sukkot, Hevel was born on Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. Right? Now, if you make a cheshbon from Rosh Chodesh Tishrei till Chanukah, how many days is it? Look.
60, over 60, 80,
85. 85 days, right? Because you have, let's say, Rosh Chodesh, you have, the whole Tishrei is 30 days, the whole cheshbon is 30 days, that's 60. Plus Kislev, 25 days of Kislev is another 25. 60 plus 25 is 85. So 85 days. So how can the Medrash say that according to everyone, he didn't live more than 50 days? According to the first opinion, that B'Tishrei Nivra Olam, he lived for 85 days. So this question is first asked by the Marash Yafa in the Pirush Yefei Torah on Bereishis Rabbah. He's the first one to ask this question, and he says there's a mistake in the Bereishis Rabbah. He doesn't say what the mistake is. This is a mistake. So what's the mistake? So Seder Darius says that the mistake is instead of saying 50 days, it's supposed to say 90 days. Right? So according to the opinion of B'Tishrei Nivra Olam, it's 85 days. So saying the Medrash is saying that everyone agrees he didn't live more than 90 days. Maximum, for sure, the max is 85. Everyone agrees that 90 is already, Hevel didn't live 90 days. That's what the Seder Darius says. If you look in, other Mefarshim say like this, that what the Yefei Torah, what the Marash Yafa means to say, is that no, the Medrash doesn't mean to say, everyone agrees that he lived at least 50 days, but rather, everyone agrees that he. The Medrash says that everyone says that he didn't live more than 50 days. No, it's not supposed to say that everyone agrees that he didn't live more than 50 days. Rather, it's supposed to say. everyone agrees that he didn't live less than 50 days. That's what it's supposed to say. Meaning, either he lived 85 or he lived 50. But nobody holds that it was less than 50. That's what the Yedei Moshe and the Radal on the Bereshis Rabbah, that's what they say. It's supposed to say, how come Moedim Shalasa Hevel ba'olam pachos mechamishim yom, not yosem mechamishim yom. The Yaibetz also here. Okay, the Yaibetz has a tshuva about this also, and he says that if you take away the first 30 days, because the first 30 days is a suffix nefel, so then it's 85 minus 30, which is 55, and then he says that it could be that Hevel wasn't born right away, like we said, that Hevel was born by Sukkot, or the Yaibetz wants to say that Hevel was really born. He wants to say that B'Laman Amar B'Tishrei Nivra Olam, so that means Hashem started creating the world in Tishrei, and then Adam was born on the 6th day of Tishrei, which doesn't go with what we said before, because we said that really Hashem started creating the world on the 25th of Elul, and Adam was created on the 1st of Tishrei. That's what it means with Tishrei Nivra Olam. But that's what the Yaibetz wants to say. Then he wants to say that maybe 50 is Laftafka, it means 55, or we're just rounding it to the nearest 5. There's a whole bunch of explanations over here. That's that Nakuda. And Chazal saying that it was 50 days later, either from Sukkot till Chanukah or from Pesach till Shavuot. Okay. Pirkei Eliezer, obviously, we said Pirkei Eliezer obviously understands that B'Tishrei Nivra Olam, the Adam Rishon was created on Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, and whether Kayin and Hevel were also, so Kayin for sure, Hevel we're not sure exactly, but Pashas Hevel wasn't born long afterwards. But when did this story happen? Pirkei Eliezer is going to say that it happened on it's going to happen on Pesach or Erev Pesach, and I think we're going to stop over here. We're not going to get into the whole Pesach Erev Pesach thing. Targum Yonasan and Pirkei Eliezer say that it happened Erev Pesach. So that's another opinion of when did this story happen, Pesach or Erev Pesach. I think we'll stop here.
But the Bereshis Rabbah brought Rebbe Eliezer as it happened in Hanukkah.
Right. The Medrash, I guess Bereshis Rabbah is saying, like, according to Rebbe Eliezer who holds B'Tishrei Nivra Olam, you could say it like that.
But it doesn't say that is
but
what
not,
Rebbe Eliezer
yeah.
holds.
I guess you would have to say it like that. Or maybe here, this Medrash isn't Rebbe Eliezer speaking, I don't know.
If Kain would have the world, right? Now there's 6 billion people. It would have been 12 billion people.
Maybe.
Can you imagine 12 billion people?
We cannot. But we're getting there. Very close.